I think I am live. We're going to check LinkedIn just to make sure. Happy Friday, going into Thanksgiving week. How is everyone? I'm checking the page right now. I think we're good. Awesome. Hey, I know it's Friday, going into a holiday week. You're probably wrapping things up, trying to get out, slamming the laptop shut, not just till Monday, till maybe the following Monday. But wanted to come in here and do a quick, we try to come in here and do some Q&As, me, my business partner, Danny. And one of the most common questions we get is about why are, what ways can you use storytelling besides just in a keynote speech, right? And one of the ways that I talk to most people about this is I think stories are the best way to handle objections. So if you have a product or a service that you sell, if there's a reason you do a presentation or you make a call or do something and somebody would say no, you can use stories to overcome that. And there's two different ways you can do that. One was something a mentor told me a long time ago. And she would talk about, instead of arguing with somebody, facts, figures, that's too expensive, those things don't work, that's a scam, no, whatever is, you would just say, I don't know about that. All I know is, and then tell a story. And you would tell a story about somebody that had the same objection. So this actually isn't a personal story. Usually we teach a lot of things about personal stories. This would be awesome for you to kind of be a collector of stories of people you've worked with before or people in the same industry that have done something before. So if it's, hey, that's too expensive, right? Or I can't afford that. Maybe it's an investment in something. Maybe it's just, I can't afford that. I can't afford your service right now. That would be an opportunity to say, I understand, and I really don't know much about your particular situation. All I know is, and then I would tell a story about somebody who also thought they didn't have the money for whatever, the coaching program, the service, the investment. And I would tell a story about somebody in a similar situation. Mary, somebody I know that actually had 3 maxed out credit cards when we came to try to help her as well. She didn't think she could afford it. And what I know about Mary is, and then you just share that story. Now, I'm not guaranteeing you that you're always going to get a yes, that's always going to, but they can't argue with the story. And what you're doing is you're taking from combat mode, right? From like, well, it's not that expensive, or what do you spend other money? Some people feel like, well, what else do you spend money on? So you're going to go that line item through their credit card statement, like, well, you can afford this and that. You're never going to win that way. I mean, it's just like pushing back on somebody. They're just going to like dig their heels in. And the minute you attack, or the minute you say, well, you bought this, or you can afford that, they're just going to dig in. But if you share a story, it's a way for them to see an example of this. That's not you being combative with them also. Maybe it's having someone, join your business. I was just talking with a client in network marketing, right? And somebody's like, well, those things just don't work. If you don't, let's say, here's a great one. For people in network marketing, they would say something along the lines of, well, only the people that get in early make all the money. Yeah, I understand why you feel that way. And I don't know about your experiences or what you've experienced. All I know is, Sally's someone that actually got started with our company 3 months ago. And our company's been around for a decade. And then I would share some success story about Sally. And you can do this in any walk of life. Anything that you think, why would somebody not take advantage of my product, of my service? Could you share a story of somebody that invested in whatever it is that you offer, and 3 times, whatever, they took the results and earned 3 times, 5 times back their investment, right? A perfect example of that is, maybe sometimes when we sit down with a client and we talk about our 2-day workshops, and they're like, I don't know, I don't think I can afford that. And I will sit down with them and figure out, well, what do you do for a living? Right? So let's say maybe they're a real estate agent. I was like, oh, I get that. I understand. Sometimes those investments are kind of hard. All I know is, and I would tell them a story about one of our real estate clients and how after crafting their story and showing them how to execute it either on social media or a webinar or one-on-one in front of a client, how they got an extra listing that first time they told the story, that the commission on that listing was 5 times what it would have cost for them to do the 2-day workshop. So it's things like that. So that's one way to use stories to overcome objections. The other way is one of the things that we teach in our workshop is we have two closes at the end of our talks. One is a technical close. That's all the facts and figures, the small print, what it is, money back, how long is it, so in our case, like, here's the workshop, it's 2 days, this is what you learn, et cetera, et cetera. But then we also sit down with our clients and think, okay, again, what would be the reason they wouldn't take advantage of your offer? And often it comes down to a few different things. One is, I think I can do this by myself, right? So what we want to find is a hire an expert story, right? A time, and usually it's something that has nothing to do with our industry, right? We're going to talk about a time that, we tried to fix that shower head on our own and how it was just a colossal mess. And we ended up having to call the plumber anyway. And the plumber did it so much faster because in a lot of our lives, we're only ever going to fix our shower head once or twice. There are people that do this every day and make it easier and faster. So it would be some example of a time you hired an expert or a time you didn't hire an expert and why it was the best decision of your life or something you really regretted. Another example would be if somebody's like, I'm just going to think about it, I'm going to wait. We would tell a take action story, a time in your life where it would have been easy to wait, would have made sense to wait, just put it off, it'll get better. And a time, again, that you took action and it paid off. I'm so glad. I didn't want to do it. It was uncomfortable, but I took action and here was the benefit. Or a time where you didn't take action, you continue to put something off and it was just a disaster, right? And so what we're trying to do is overcome that objection, the emotion that goes along with that as well. Let me think. I'll give you one more. What about, maybe it's a status quo. I've always done it this way. Yeah, I see your point. We've just always done it this way. Then you tell some kind of status quo story. Maybe it was a way like, your mom taught you how to cook something growing up. You're like, well, this is just the way we've always done it. And then you learned a different way, from a friend or a loved one or something like later on in life. You're like, I didn't remember you could do it that way. Maybe it's something silly, folding towels, doing laundry. It's usually some silly little mundane thing, right? So what we want to do is use those kind of stories to just help them see, hey, there's a lot of times in our lives that it's easy to think we can do it on our own, right? To handle the objection one. That I think we're just going to wait. We're just going to think about it. And people don't need more time to think. Usually it's just like, they're not going to get more information. It's just a way to put that off and, take action or a status quo. This is the way I've always done it. So, I think of a fun little exercise, maybe over your holiday break, is start looking around your house for the mundane little silly chores, little things that you do that you could turn into a hire an expert story, that you could turn into a take action story, that you could turn into a status quo story, that the next time you're offering your product or service or whatever you do for a living, heck, it could even be in your personal life in an argument or trying to get somebody to do something that they're just being stubborn about, you can use something like that. So those are the stories that you want to use to help people overcome objections on that side. And the other way, like I was telling you before, is collect stories of other people who have overcome whatever objections you hear the most. Even better if they've worked with you in the past, but you don't really have to. You could really use a story of anybody in your industry. So what is an industry story, right? The stories about, hey, I don't know about that. Let me tell you about Mary, she XYZ. So those are going to be stories about your product, your service, your industries. The other one is something that's not a part of your product, your service, or your industry, and it's going to be on the other side as well. So there's you a little assignment for the holidays. I know you're like, why am I going to sit around and do that? But it's crazy. Once you kind of plug this in your brain, you'll start noticing these things. I notice things like this all the time now. I'm like, oh, that's a good story. Oh, I saw that, I was out at a restaurant. I saw this. Oh, that's another great little example. And it's like kind of when you set your brain to these silly little dials, these little things that I'm looking for, you start picking these things up, right? A perfect example is like when you're going to go buy a new car and you do all the research. You're like, I don't want a car that everybody else has. And I'm like, oh, I want that car. And the minute you decide on that car, all of a sudden you're like, when did everybody buy this car? Because I see it everywhere. It's always been everywhere. You just weren't looking for it. So enjoy your holiday. Set your brain to find a few little examples, a few little stories. And when you come back, put them to use in your day-to-day conversations or in your business and watch people take action after all. My name is Coach Jimmy. Reach out to us if you need help crafting your story to get more clients. My email is right here, jimmy@thecoachjimmy.com, or follow us at Well Crafted Story Workshop on LinkedIn. Have a great holiday.